Hey guys, it's Luke here and welcome back to another video, yet another video in my driveway. Now you may recall I did a similar video to this one with my BMW M140i fairly recently that seemed to go down quite well, and a lot of people have been saying get the GT86 on the channel more, so I thought I'd carry that idea over to this car and do a similar sort of format. The car at the moment is looking very sorry for itself, unfortunately. A bird has seemed to have, I don't know, played football on the bonnet or something, I don't know. It was like that in actually the last video I filmed with this car a couple of weeks ago. I unfortunately don't have enough kind of materials here at home to wash my car here. So it's just sat here getting dirtier and dirtier, and of course it's not living in the garage at the moment either. But anyway, let's crack on with the video. 5 things that you should know before buying a GT86. So number 1 in today's video, I think, is the most important, which is why I'm getting it done and out of the way straight off the bat. And that is actually to do with the engine, more specifically the valve spring recall. Now, this isn't something which is an issue to this particular car. It's something which every GT86 is actually, no, that's a lie. It's only 2012 and 13 models which are affected by this recall. Now, I stupidly bought the car without confirming that it had been done. I kind of presumed that it had been done already, which was not very clever, and something which I encourage you to double check, because, well, it's not like it's going to cost you money because it's a recall. It's covered by the Toyota garage or the dealership who will do the work. It's just a bit of a pain in the arse, and it has left a sour taste in my mouth, not going to lie, mainly because I'm having to go out of my way to get it done. The recall overall takes about a week, and as I'm sure you're aware, the whole engine has to come out of the car, it has to be stripped down, and then the valve springs, which are dug right down in the engine, have to be swapped out to more uprated components. So it's a big job, a very big job, but like I said, it's not going to cost you anything, so don't worry about that. Just make sure it's been done before you buy the car. Actually, a funny story with my specific car. I took it into my local Toyota garage in Basingstoke few days, I think probably less than a week before the UK went into its lockdown phase. I then had to quickly rush up there and get it back because obviously this whole thing was going to happen, and I didn't want it to be stuck up there, because if it was, then it would be still up there right now, and it's been probably about 2 months since this has all happened in the UK. So as soon as we're all allowed to go back to normal as such, then this will be going in to have the recall done. I mean, I can't drive the car as it is at the moment anyway, but even if I was allowed to, then I would be a little bit scared, not gonna lie, because this recall was introduced in 2018, so it's over 2 years overdue, I suppose you could say. But yeah, a big recall which needs to be done, and make sure if you are buying one of these, make sure it's done, for the love of God. Number 2 on this list is to do with the fuel light. Now, me personally, I have always owned a car where there is a digital readout of your range, with a fuel light which likes to come on with probably about 1/8 of a tank remaining. The GT86 comes on at the last minute. I cannot explain the amount of times which I have very nearly run out of fuel in this car. And normally when the fuel light comes on, maybe within, like, I don't know, 100 miles range of running out, then it will make it quite obvious that the fuel light is coming on. On this, it makes no noise, it just lights up. So if you're on a motorway journey, for example, which is, to be honest, where this car for me is spending the majority of its life, then you kind of lose touch with the fuel light, really, or where you're at with the fuel. Even though this is a 6-speed box, I've noticed that when you're at motorway speed, 70 miles an hour, then it does like to drink fuel, which is a pretty natural thing for any car, really. If it was a 5-speed box, then it would be even worse. But you kind of just lose touch of basically what the dial is saying, right? And when you're on the motorway for like a couple of hours especially, that is the case. But I have found that this car, well, the fuel light comes on, I'd say maybe within like 10 miles of this thing running out of fuel, and the last quarter of a tank definitely goes down quicker. But it's just frustrating because you don't have a digital range which you can manually set on the screen in front of you, so you can keep an eye on it. The fuel light doesn't make a noise when it comes on, and it comes on at the last minute, which is really, really annoying. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if this is something which can be fixed. Maybe some other GT86 owners can tell me in the comments. But I'm sure that this is a known thing with these that people find annoying, because for me, it's actually quite stressful, and because obviously, well, normally I would be traveling all over the UK, filming various cars here, there and everywhere. So this car is generally the one which I use for the motorway journeys, 2 hours or 3 hours up north, for example. So yeah, that's something which I've definitely noticed. And yeah, really frustrating. Moving on then to number 3 from this video, and that is actually when you drive this car hard, it does like to smell really strange. Now, I've heard mixed things online and on forums about reasons behind that. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not going to believe everything I hear on forums. When I did drop this car off for its recall, actually, before I had to go collect it and bring it back, I did ask about it, and apparently it's just a normal thing which they do. But basically, when you drive this car hard, there's a really strange, almost like burning rubber smell you get, especially when you drive hard and then you come to a stop, say at traffic lights, for example. It comes through the air vents and you can just generally smell it. It's really bizarre. At first I did think, okay, maybe this is because the car's been parked up for a long time, because for those of you who don't know, before I bought this car, it was basically undriven for the year before I bought it. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just blowing out the cobwebs, but it's just keep on doing it. And I heard that it is something which happens to all of them. Yeah, it's just really weird. I'm not sure if there's a way which you can fix it or anything, but there's just something to be aware of. It might smell a little bit like it's braking when you drive it hard, but I've been assured that it's fine and it's normal. But yeah, just thought I'd add that in here because it's a bit bizarre, and I've never experienced anything like it before. Point number 4 for this video is just generally how the car drives. It's not the quickest car, okay? This is the kind of car which comes into its own on some tight, twisty country roads, which I'm lucky to be surrounded by. In a straight line, it's really not the quickest thing. So to put things into perspective, it's a 2 litre, but it hasn't got a turbo or a supercharger from standard. 200 brake from standard, which isn't bad. It's not a slouch by any means, but it's just not the quickest in a straight line. So for people buying this car to be a motorway machine, kind of going from 0 to 70 in like no time at all, then it's not that kind of car. It's the kind of car which you use at the weekends and you go out for a nice hoon on some tight, twisty country roads. Maybe something like the North Coast 500, which I would love to do in this car. Maybe like the Evo Triangle, something like that. There are, of course, solutions to this by going forced induction, either supercharging it or turbocharging it. Those can easily make this thing up to about 300 brake horsepower, which when you compare it to the weight of this car, which is next to nothing, that's when this car is transformed. I do not know why Toyota made this car without a form of forced induction. I think having a turbo on this from standard would be incredible. It would be far more popular than it is, and it's already a pretty popular car, or at least it was when it first came out. I'm not sure about now, but I just don't understand why they didn't do it. A 2 litre without a turbo or anything does make it a little bit gutless. And when, say for example, going back to the motorway scenario, which is generally where this car spends most of its life, it's not the easiest. Say when you're joining a motorway or trying to overtake from the slow lane or something, it just kind of takes a while. You kind of sit there and come on, that's 65, come on. Now I'm planning to up the power on the car at some stage, but from standard, it's not the quickest, and I'm sure that is pretty obvious anyway. But for those of you who are kind of looking at this thinking this might be an option for me, either this or like an MX-5 or something like that, 350Z something, it's not the quickest, okay, but there is a solution behind it, so don't completely write it off. They can be an absolute machine when you kind of invest some money into it, especially the engine bay. But yeah, a great car to drive. In the corners, this thing is phenomenal. The way it grips and the fact that you've got the manual gearbox as well, it does come alive, but in some scenarios it kind of does. It can be improved. I think that's probably the best way to put it. The 5th and final piece of advice which I can give you guys watching in this video kind of follows on from my previous point. The modification options out there for the car. Now don't get me wrong, there is an endless list of stuff which you can get for this car, albeit the sister cars, the BRZ or the FRS, or BRZ if you want to say it like that. Now yes, there are 1,000,001 things which you can do to this car, be it wide body, be it wheels, exhaust, engine modifications, lights, everything. There is plenty out there to do for the car, but if you're watching this from the UK and you're planning to do 1,000,001 things to it, then realistically there aren't very many companies in the UK which facilitate modifications on this car. Don't get me wrong, there are, for example, Fensport, who helped me out with the carbon goodies inside the car. They also do some turbo kits and little bits and bobs like that. But comparing this to, say, the American market, for example, then there really isn't very many outlets out there which sell modifications for this car. Now, this isn't an issue because obviously you can import stuff in. It just takes a little bit longer, and it's something which I thought I'd leave as a bit of an extra at the end of this video, because in some cases you could be waiting an awfully long time for parts. It is an old car nowadays, and you've got to remember that as well. Some parts may not necessarily be sold anymore. They might be running out of stock and just deciding to discontinue them, but there are plenty of modifications out there. You just might have to search for them, get them secondhand, or just wait maybe like a month for them to arrive from overseas. I wouldn't say that I've gone really heavily into modifications at all. I've just done some carbon bits inside. I do have plans for the car. Whether those will become into reality because of how things are at the moment, I'm really unsure with what to do. But yeah, as standard, it's a cool looking car, but when you stick a load of mods on them, they really do look good. Say, change out those wheels, stick some spacers on them, lower it, stick an exhaust on it, maybe a wing. It goes on forever. But yeah, something which I thought I'd let you guys know just as a bit of a bonus at the end of this video. Again, I'm sorry this has been quite a straightforward video in my driveway. Theoretically, with the restrictions that are in place in the UK, I could go out and drive if I was on my way to a grocery shop, for example, to get some essentials. I have no need to do that personally, so that's why I've kind of been either here or in my office kind of doing these videos. So I hope you can all understand about that. Hopefully before too long we'll be able to go out there, go for a nice drive. I'll take that out, and also the M140i, and we'll go have some fun. Maybe even a road trip, because I did have one planned into Europe, but I've had to cancel it. So maybe kind of one staying within the British Isles might be the best bet. But anyway, 5 things that you guys should know before buying one of these. They're a great car. I really don't have many negatives to do with it at all. I think the fuel light issue is the one which most annoyed me, to be honest. So I'd love to hear if there is some sort of fix that you can do to that, or if I'm just being stupid and there is in fact a digital range that you can find on the dash. But a quick flick through didn't really yield any results for me. Yes, I'm aware it needs a clean, but I explained that earlier on in the video anyway. But I think that's going to wrap things up for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed, even though it has been a pretty straightforward video. If you have, please do make sure you leave a like and make sure to subscribe for all the adventures still to come.